Welcome back to the first podcast of 2023.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And the last one of 2023 probably won't even be us doing it. It'll be AIs that we've programmed to save us time.
It'll be a four-person conversation. Two of them being AI.
All of them being AI.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'll just think that. Yeah.
That is the hope. But
Yeah.
I think that over the past, 3-ish weeks, while we haven't done a podcast, that's been, the 3-ish weeks where we've learned the most about AIs
Yeah.
that we ever have before. Because up until this point, my experience using AIs has mostly been using, every now and then crappy chatbots or the general AIs like the YouTube algorithm.
Right.
And whatever else we have on social media that's just kind of there in the background, but we're not directly communicating with.
Yeah, that's more of a emotional communication almost.
Yeah.
Or less, more abstract than typing into it.
Yeah. But now it's become incredibly apparent that because there is a thing, and ChatGPT is what I've been using at least, and I've used Midgard or Midjourney, yeah, Midgard.
That's good.
Yeah,
It's like a Valheim thing.
Yeah, I've used Midjourney also. I used that one first, and it was a little impressive, but the images were all a little bit samey,
And kind of garbled.
Yeah, and sometimes they didn't have too fine details. But it was more impressive, I think, to hear something or at least to see something type out intelligent responses to a question that I couldn't even necessarily form myself just looking on Google to get some information.
Yeah, it gives very good response.
Yeah.
Which I have something funny to say about was I used Stable Diffusion.
What is Stable Diffusion?
It's one of the image ones.
Okay.
Yeah. It's like Midjourney pretty much.
Yeah.
But before we get to the actual conversation, there's just really funny you can do with them. Where I haven't used ChatGPT actually, but with I need to make an account or whatever. But the Stable Diffusion thing, you can type normally you just type picture of flowers or something, but you can just type random letters, or just made up words, and it still gives you a response.
Nice.
And it can just make really very random images, and it gives you 4 images when you do it.
Yeah.
And sometimes they'll be completely unrelated, but sometimes they'll be of similar things. I can't remember. I typed one weird thing where it gave me a bunch of images and one of them had text in it, and I typed that text in and it gave me some really creepy things.
Nice.
But it's a very cool
Yeah, that sounds cool.
It's not. You can use it in very unintended ways, I think. But,
yeah. No, I think that's actually one of the benefits of those AI systems, and somewhere where ChatGPT really suffers is it's so confined. The programmers have put on a lot of restraints on it to stop it from doing stuff because it is speech instead of images that they can just say are up to your interpretation and, they're not responsible for it.
Right.
But if ChatGPT is telling you to do something bad, then there's more clearly an issue with that. So they've put on a lot of restraints.
Yeah. That's
really ruining it almost because there are times when it could be giving us good information or at the very least funny stuff.
Right. Yeah.
And it won't.
Which is funny. It says Trump is stupid or something.
Yeah. It could do something really good.
Yeah.
But they really restricted it.
Yeah, because I guess the thing is the images, there's only images can only be so bad, and it's never going to be very political or it's not going to say COVID is fake or something. Because if text, we view it more as this is a person typing the text.
Yeah.
Even though we know it's a chatbot. Whereas the images is it's not going to look like something that person can make.
Yeah.
Unless it's you ask it to make a drawing or something.
Yeah. And I think there are some protections on the image bots, they don't want any. Yeah.
Yeah. There's no protections. Yeah.
There are some but there's less, I feel.
Yeah.
I think
less politically motivated.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you ask it to make an image of a famous politician, I think it would.
Oh,
Whereas ChatGPT doesn't even really want to talk about them too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's I'm sure once the image AIs get good enough, they might want to if you can make a deep fake level thing of Trump killing somebody or something.
Yeah.
They're not going to want you to do that. But
yeah.
The chat or the text is already just text that makes any sense and sounds like it could be typed by a person.
Yeah.
Is already good enough to fake.
The texts it's too good because that's most of what we use to communicate online is just text and
we're so used to it.
Rarely we'll use pictures. But already, like with the bot systems that they have that have existed for years where they can just spam a ton of accounts on social media.
Yeah.
The fact that they could now post really good text and that's very convincing is very dangerous, potentially.
Yeah. Like, kind of insane how, like...
Yeah.
Yeah, because if you see, like, a comment or something, it's not like a paragraph of text where it's like you can tell it's a person or not. It's like a few sentences, or just like one sentence. And it's like, it's so easy to fake that.
Yeah.
Like, you could get ChatGPT to make 1 billion of those, and like 99% of them would be realistic.
And the way that I actually found ChatGPT, I don't know if I told you, was I was listening to a business podcast. And the guy was talking about how someone who he followed on Twitter posted a thread of like top 10 business tips. And that he read through it and that it was a great tweet and it was the guy's best performing tweet. And then later the guy revealed an AI generated all of it. And it was ChatGPT that did it.
Yeah.
But it actually outperformed all of his other tweets.
Yeah, that's
and
really good.
Yeah, it's very interesting that
Yeah.
the AI knows what we want better than what we could design ourselves.
Right. And it makes sense. Like,
Yeah.
It's almost, like just guesses what it expects somebody to say.
Yeah.
But it has everybody's information. So it's like, if you think about it, like it's trying to say the best thing it can. If it knows what everybody has said on the internet, I don't think it doesn't have access to everything probably.
Yeah.
But in theory, it could just like get like whoever is the best at saying like business tips or whatever, it will say something as good as that combined with the second best person as well.
Yeah. And then it's just like slightly different, but combined wisdom is better. And
right.
Yeah.
No, so it's like, I guess it's not guaranteed to be better, but it's like, as long as there's not some big secret that you have that you don't reveal in your texts, like in your tweets or whatever.
Yeah.
It's going to be able to figure out things better than us.
Yeah. That was the issue with it, though. The fact that it isn't necessarily better because as someone who's looked at a lot of business tips regardless, the business tips that it did give were kind of basic.
Oh, yeah.
But it did appeal to a wide audience who didn't actually know that much about business.
Yeah.
And so it was able to get a lot of likes and stuff, but it wasn't actually the most profound information.
Right.
It was like stuff like, you should start a business plan and just like kind of basic stuff that, was useful, but not too useful.
Yeah, well, I guess that is almost what the people tweeting business stuff are doing.
Yeah,
like,
that is what
they're not giving the really profound stuff. They're giving like the wide audience things.
Yeah, because in the past I've tried to follow like business people to see like what are they thinking, you know, what could I use? And it ends up not being super useful because they do end up kind of pandering to just the masses who don't know much.
Yeah.
And it kind of has to be that way because if they were just doing it for a small select group, then they just wouldn't really have a following and you'd have to be along for the whole ride to understand what they were saying.
Yeah. It's like that for I like watching like video game tips or whatever when I get a new game, like Valheim or something.
Yes.
But the thing is, like, they're never going to give you anything past like the basic beginner things.
Yeah.
They might like tell you some items or something, but they're not going to tell you like advanced techniques.
Yeah. Sometimes the gaming videos, if it's a gaming channel, they'll do like a top 10 tips and then another top 10 tips and then like tips for advanced players. And sometimes they do give you some stuff. But most of, like with the game, I feel most of it comes from playing it and just having an intuition.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's probably how the businesses too. Like most of the real, like the best way to get the advanced information is just to do it rather than to like hear someone say it.
Yeah. But that almost means that the AIs might not have too much of an advantage initially. I mean, they'd have a big advantage over the everyday person, but over the actual experienced business people who know information that isn't just stored on the internet.
Right. Yeah. That now that I think about it, actually, that's kind of like the limit of language is that you can't like the experience is like it's almost like the more advanced the thing you're talking about, the more experience you need to actually understand the advanced conversation. Because if two like billionaires are talking about how they run their they're like CEOs, they talk about how they run their business.
Yeah.
Like someone who owns like $1,000 company is not going to like really get what they're talking about. Yeah. Because they've never done it.
And a lot of their tips won't be too relevant to that person.
Yeah, or like even if they gave a tip, it would be too influenced by what they've experienced.
Yeah.
To mean the same thing to the person they're saying it to almost.
Yeah.
And I think that would be an issue with the AI where it's like the AI doesn't have any actual personal experience in like the physical things, like the business or like science or something.
Yeah.
Or like seeing a plant or something.
And there's a lot that even if they did a big conversation, like even if those billionaires had a big conversation with each other and shared a lot of the tips that they knew, there's stuff that you almost can't vocalize, at least not effectively, that they probably just wouldn't discuss because it would be pointless to try, like having an intuition about trusting some lawyer over another lawyer.
Right.
Or something to that effect.
And it's something you only get from experience.
Yeah. And so there's probably a lot of information that just isn't even on the internet that the AI won't initially have any access to, and it will actually have to learn through experience.
Yeah. I guess if it does have experience, like if we use it as a lawyer or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's when it really, yes.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And that's how we'll be able to benefit from it if we're not the first couple of users. I mean, that's where it will make the mistakes.
Right.
And then it will realize, okay, I don't do this, I don't do that. And then the papers come out okay.
What do you mean?
Like, as long as we aren't actually using it as like the first 1,000 people to use the AI, it's a lawyer that serves everybody, and so you're benefiting from all the other people who have used it.
Yeah, so like the longer you wait, the better it will be.
Yeah, but it will very quickly learn if there's a lot of people using it. So it is useful in that regard.
Yeah, I think it makes sense not to be like in a huge rush to like be like an early adopter almost.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, like it's,
I have used it for not like anything too serious, but have used it when trying to figure out some legal stuff, and it has given me incorrect information.
Nice. Yeah.
So
that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would not trust it.
It's not perfect because it doesn't have access to the internet, and I don't think that it even stores information from our conversations necessarily.
I don't know. Yeah.
Like within a conversation, I think it tries to remember what's been said. But if another user then said the same thing, I think it would give a similar response that's incorrect. Because I don't know if it actually changes, like if it lets the users change its training.
I don't know. Like it definitely learns. Oh yeah, I guess not having used it that much. I don't know. Like I know that it learns things or like remembers things from a few like statements ago.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it remembers things like the whole lifetime of like your account.
Yeah, it might. Maybe it does for the whole account, but in terms of other people's accounts, I don't think that the core AI changes it all.
Oh, I see. Yeah, like it's not going to learn something from someone else's account.
Yeah, like it's on an account-by-account basis, but
yeah, I don't think so.
When it really gets good is when it does learn from the other accounts, because there are going to be other people asking about aliens, and it's going to give a crappy response, and they'll like guide it into something good, and then it will just know to initially give a really good response.
Right. Yeah. I think that's the idea with like the next iteration will probably use all of like the user data from this. So even if like right now it's not learning from other people, the idea is like GPT-4 or whatever will use, I'm guessing, all of the data from everyone talking to it.
Yeah.
And then combine that into like, this is what people preferred, or like people asked for clarification on this or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think one of the biggest changes that they could make that would be really nice is currently it just spams you with text. And it's just like a really wordy response. And it is impressive at first because it's tough for an AI, I guess, to make a really wordy response that everything blends together well. But it gets kind of old after a while and just annoying because I don't actually want to read a paragraph answer to every question. I just want like a yes or no at times. And I've tried asking it to shorten its responses, and it will by like a sentence. And it's just kind of tedious to deal with that.
Yeah, that's kind of funny.
Yeah.
Because I guess it's usually, it can't like, it probably isn't like thinking very much. It sort of just like spits out the first response.
Yeah.
And it's going to like not be very concise if it doesn't like have a, like I feel like when you, a way to like speak concisely for a person is to like think of the response as like an abstract idea and then kind of like condense it into like the essence of the idea or whatever.
Yeah.
And if the AI just has, it's just like predicting what the next word should be, it's not going to be like condensing the idea beforehand. It's just going to like start typing and then keep typing until it thinks it's done.
Yes. And I just realized that part of the issue is probably the restrictions, once again, that they've placed on it. Because a lot of the text ends up being, in certain cases, like if I ask about a medical thing, it will then give some liability disclaimer about, and you should never trust, my advice on this medical issue. You should always consult a doctor too. And it's like a paragraph of that mixed in, or just kind of when it starts out, it says like, well, I'm not entirely sure about this. Here's the information that you were asking about. And just makes the response really wordy and it's kind of useless, but
that's probably part of it. Like,
yeah.
It's almost like it's almost like it has like schizophrenia, and it's like trying to think of the idea, but it has this voice shouting of like, tell it to say a liability thing.
In every response too. Like even if you keep talking about it, just says it at the end of every response.
That's really good.
And it's annoying, but that's something that they can kind of get away with in a text bot like this. But once they actually make an audible bot,
It'd be really annoying.
they would realize how obnoxious it is because you can't just skim past it and it just takes minutes to explain the liability every time.
Yeah, that's how I feel about books versus like movies or something.
Yeah.
Like you can just kind of skip things if it's like, I don't want to read about this. Or like some like stupid thing.
Yeah, the books you can, but you do tend to not have to as much.
Right.
Like, because the AI is just being obnoxious and doesn't understand.
Yeah, the book's like the person knows what they're doing.
Yeah, the person's at least hopefully writing it so that people will enjoy it.
Yeah. The AI has no idea what it's doing.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it's trying to like, maybe not write it for people to enjoy it, but like it's trying to at least make sense or like guess what the best thing for it to say is. But the best thing, it doesn't know well enough.
Yeah.
Like what the best thing should be.
Yeah. And it's almost at times not even guessing what the best thing is. It just...
Oh, yeah. I mean, like, it's guessing a different type of optimized thing.
It must be really complicated because I have a feeling at times that it has some kind of agenda. Like when I was asking it about... I don't know how deep we want to go into it, but when I was asking it about, like, the vaccines and COVID, it just seemed to have some kind of an agenda that...
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, maybe it was just the information that they happened to feed into it, but it definitely didn't want to talk about certain topics or couldn't address certain aspects of that kind of stuff.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like, it could just be like they put restriction on it to like to avoid certain topics.
I think
that they know are going to be like
that might be the case, and that would actually be a very obvious one to put a restriction on. Come to think of it,
because I feel like the risk, probably the thing they're worried about is that people will say something to it, and then it gives a response, and then they screenshot it.
Yeah.
And say, look, the ChatGPT told me the vaccine is going to kill me or something.
Yeah. That is something that they could worry about.
Yeah.
Which they shouldn't really have to worry about that. Like, if they make this program that they give a general disclaimer of before, I don't think they should be liable.
Yeah. Well, I think there are two things. One, I feel like you could also just fake it and just, like, do the inspect element. And, like,
you could do that.
But I think more importantly, it's, like... The law, like the whatever like legal disclaimer they have, isn't really the important part. Like I feel like the internet is almost like making laws a little outdated. Where it's like you can only patrol the internet but so much.
Yeah.
And it's like if people like even if there is like a legal disclaimer, people can just use the ChatGPT to say racist things or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's not going to matter if it's like if they're legally bound to it or not. It's like if everyone on the internet is talking about how ChatGPT is racist, that's what matters, not like the actual lawsuit that would occur.
Well, one thing that I do worry about with the patrolling the internet is that the AI systems could make patrolling the internet a lot easier.
Right, yeah.
And just patrolling things in general, because there are a lot of things that go on that aren't necessarily by the book in everybody's lives. Just because the book...
breaks plenty of laws,
yeah, just because the laws are so complicated and... Like, there's no way that someone knows all the laws, and for sure, like, people have broken laws and not even know about it. Like, almost everyone has broken some laws without even knowing about it. Just general little regulations and
like
stuff
driving
like that.
Things,
yeah, that kind of stuff. And what I worry is that the AI will make it really easy for the government to notice any little shortcomings, and shortcomings in laws that they probably wouldn't even have made if they were actually going to be followed by everyone. But it could be the kind of situation where they just start slapping on like a $10 fine to someone's bank account every time they break a little law or something.
Yeah, and make like a really like totalitarian sort of thing.
It could be really bad.
Yeah. I think that's definitely an issue, or like a possibility. But at the same time, it's like if the laws on the internet become like kind of outdated, where it's like, I'm trying to think like, it's like the legal requirements for ChatGPT to not give medical advice or whatever.
Yeah.
Is kind of like a flimsy thing when you have like, say the government has an AI that can detect it giving medical advice. We also have like 10 more AIs that are like, that we can use to get all sorts of medical advice we want. And it's like, they can't really stop you from using the medical advice that it gives you.
Yeah.
Unless they have access to like your like bodily movements or whatever.
Yeah. I'm not, that kind of stuff they couldn't stop, but stuff like if you sent, like when you, like say your parent buys you a new car And that's like considered a gift. I'm sure there's some law about like you're supposed to pay some taxes on like some gift or anything over $600.
Sure.
Any gift, like even a Christmas gift that you receive, is supposed to be reported to the IRS. And it's like, who is actually doing that when it's a little gift? But
yeah, but once they have access to more information.
Yeah, when it has, like, they already have access to the information because it's all like in federal systems, like the titles of vehicles and whatnot. But once they actually have a button that they can press that says, figure out all of the issues that have gone on where there hasn't been a payment made for like something that should have been, then they can just send every American like a big tax bill for the past 10 years of everything that's gone on that probably shouldn't have been taxed in the first place, but they just had these rules for other reasons.
Yeah, that's a possibility. Yeah, who knows?
Yeah, and that's just one thing. Like, that's just with, like, transactions and taxes.
But if you think about it, if they just send the bill of, like, $2,000 to every American, or, like, 90% of them, everyone's just going to go on the internet and be like, how dare they do this? I'm not paying it. And then everyone revolts. And the government loses control of the population.
Yeah, that is possible.
That seems likely.
That is possible. But I feel like they send every American larger than $2,000 bills on their taxes every year anyways.
Yeah, but we assume, like, we're used to the taxes, and we just, like, we kind of have, like, the mass psychosis of, like, we're just okay giving away our money to the government.
Yeah.
But if it's, like, a new thing, and it's, like, all of a sudden they enforce this restriction, people wake up and are like, wait a minute, what's this new thing? I don't like this.
Yeah.
And if everybody says that at the same time, all the voices get heard. You know?
That would be good. Yeah. I bet there would be a lot of complaining. Like, that's the, I bet there would be a lot of complaining online, but it is close enough to, like, the already existing taxes. Like, some people do have issues on their taxes, and it's just a matter of, did the IRS audit that person and figure out the issues and then send them the updated tax bill? It's almost just like everyone gets audited that year instead of a small random chance.
Yeah, but I'm saying, like, if everyone gets audited at once. And they ask, like, they say something to their friend, and they're like, I got audited, and they're like, oh, so did I. Wait a minute, this isn't normal. and then people revolt.
That is possible.
I think we're protected by, like, the
masses.
The masses that agree about things.
That would be good.
Yeah.
And, like, my thought is, like, people might not revolt necessarily, but they would just be complaining a lot, and the like, politicians,
like internet thing.
Like the people, the speakers in the House would just be like, oh, we want to get reelected. Why are we doing this? Like, let's cancel it this year, and starting next year, everyone will actually get the taxes put on them.
Sure.
Something like that.
Yeah.
But, I agree. It probably wouldn't actually.
Yeah, probably not. But it actually reminds me of that show, Severed, that's about the jobs.
Oh,
and how you like you have like,
what was the general plot?
It's like there's this company that like you get a job there and you like separate your mind into like your work life and your home life.
That's right.
And what are like the things that they say in it? Or is it the guy who finds some like book about like it's like a communism thing almost. But one of the quotes is that you don't need your job needs you. Which kind of makes sense, where it's like you need the money that your job gives you, but more fundamentally, like the jobs, like companies wouldn't exist if everybody just decided to stop going to work.
Yes.
And it's that sort of thing of like, we're kind of in like a stable society where everybody like agrees to pay their taxes and agrees to follow the laws.
Yeah.
But it's like, if the internet allows people to group together and like communicate well enough.
Yeah.
That if suddenly the government starts like turning on us, people can communicate well enough that they realize, wait a minute, the government is trying to do this thing to us. We can just not do it.
Yeah.
And it's like, if everyone's voices are heard.
Yeah.
Like the job needing us starts to be like weaker than us. Like we have like more of a cohesive voice than like the job, like the government being able to control the people is more effective than people are isolated. Yeah. So it's like people aren't isolated.
Yeah, that is a real thing. Yeah. And that is something that I've thought before, not specifically about the government, but I think I even told you this before. That a thought I was having about just the general wealth that everyone has. Like the billionaires supposedly own farmland and real estate and mansions and yachts. But if everyone in the country or everyone in the world just all of a sudden decided that nobody owned anything, the billionaires could only cover so much ground and like hold so much stuff in their hands to actually own it, that they actually wouldn't own that much. Like their yacht... It would just have a ton of strangers standing on it, and they couldn't actually do anything to stop those people. Yeah. And it is an interesting idea.
Right. Like the ownership is just kind of like a social construct.
Yeah, just an idea that this person owns that, and we all ought to respect it, because if we don't, then we won't own the things that we own.
Right.
And, people who own nothing want everyone to own nothing, because then it's all equal for them to take as much as they could have.
Right.
But people who do own even just a little bit like the idea of the private property because they like having what they've got.
Yeah, it's the exact same thing where it's like people that own a lot of stuff rely on the people who own a little bit less to like agree because they also want it.
Yeah. And fortunately for most people, it ends up that everyone has some stuff that they'd rather not give up.
Yeah, it's just good enough.
Yeah, it's just good enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
But overall, like if you're in the bottom 50%, you could technically have a little bit more if everything was completely divided equally. But the risk of trying to do that is that whoever's delegating like what things go where probably would take more for themselves, and it would be really tough to actually divide stuff equally in that kind of a situation. Yeah. And there would probably have to be some bloodshed.
Right. Yeah, it's like being... Yeah, you either keep the bottom 50% happy enough, stupid enough to like not realize that they can get more. Yeah. Or you scare them enough.
Yeah. Well, it's tough because...
There's obviously different ways.
Yeah, because it's not even like they'd have to be stupid not to try. Because if it really is the bottom 50% versus the top 50%, you only have a 50% chance of actually succeeding, and probably less because you have less resources to work with, like less weapons and whatnot. So it really is like just the kind of situation that you're in.
Well, you could also view it as like 50% of like the power, like the means of like attacking the other 50% or whatever. Yeah. Where it's like not 50% of the population, but like there is some dividing line where it's like if the people above this line of wealth decide to revolt, they can take over the top other half or whatever. Yeah. It might be more like 90% versus 10%. Or something.
I think it would have to be closer to 90%.
Which is not going to happen.
There is some crazy stat like the top 1% own like 35% of all the wealth.
But I expect it to be higher.
And then it's the top 10. I don't know the exact numbers. It's something around there. And then I think like the top 10% own like or own like 90% of the wealth. There's something like
that's
that.
Pretty good.
Yeah, something crazy. It's not exact, but something along those lines. And it would have to be a lot of people deciding to stop that.
Right.
Yeah.
It's probably not going to happen. But I think with the AI, it's like, it will sort of like redefine what it means to be wealthy almost. If like assuming the money doesn't get into like the virtual stuff too much. But it's like if everyone has access to like this AI that knows everything, it's almost like that AI becomes the most valuable thing instead of like safe. We get better food technology. Yeah. And we don't have to pay for food, or we don't have to pay for like housing and stuff. It's like the information becomes more valuable as those things become less valuable. So it could be that like being a billionaire will stop meaning as much because everybody has access to like all the things that the billionaires have access to now or whatever. Like we can have a virtual yacht or a virtual farm or whatever.
Yeah. It's my suspicion that in the near future, people are going to be able to get into some type of VR thing and live pretty comfortably with a very low initial investment to like buy whatever that headset or whatever they need is. Yeah. But in the actual headsets, whatever they're doing, if it's anything like the world that we currently live in, there would most likely be artificial restraints, not based on like what you input from the real world, because people won't care about that as much. But the reason I think we would want some artificial restraints is for the enjoyment of the people in the system.
Yeah.
Because
people like the hierarchy.
Yeah, well, not even the hierarchy, but they like the challenge of getting the stuff and not just having unlimited. Because I've played games like Minecraft even is a really good example where you can build whatever you want, and most of the fun, at least for me, is getting the materials in the first place. Right. And the game loses most of its longevity and enjoyment if I just spawn in stacks of diamonds and all kinds of items, because it's like it's just not fun anymore. And some people will like just building with free resources, but I like getting the stuff.
We should rewatch the Matrix movies.
I've never seen them.
Yeah, like the later ones. Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't seen the fourth one either. I want to see that.
The fourth one's alright, but I think it's like the second one is objectively bad, but it does talk about some cool stuff like that.
Nice.
Where it's like the idea that like the Matrix wouldn't be stable if they made it like perfect for everybody. Yeah. Because everyone like would like lose interest or whatever.
Yeah. And I believe that a little bit, like to an extent. Yeah. And that is the end of this. So we'll see you guys in the Matrix.
Yeah.
Bye, Marky.
Bye. Bye, Rushi.